Today we're going to talk about some EMS ambulance deployment models. We know that we need ambulances, just how many we're going to need and where are we going to put them. Let's remember back that we have different levels of care, ranging from basic life support all the way through our specialty, our critical care. Most of our 911 ambulances are going to be ALS, but we have this the spectrum of level of care that we can provide through our EMS service. And with these ALS or BLS or ILS, we have different structures. We can combine these with first response, typically a fire department, and then our ambulance unit following thereafter. So we have our ambulances. We have them staffed and ready to go. But where are we gonna do with them? Ambulance deployment for our purposes, what we're trying to do, we're trying to match our supply with the demand from our community. Demand says that we need 5 ambulances in our community. We're not going to staff 30 ambulances, and vice versa. Demand says we need 30 ambulances. We're not going to staff 5. So we're matching our supply with the community demand for our services, and we're also taking into account and trying to manage our crew's workload. Our community demand says 30 ambulances. We staff 20. We might be able to meet that demand, get to all of those calls during the day, but we're really going to be putting a strain on our crews. So not only are we matching supply and demand, but we are taking into consideration and managing our employees' workload. To boil down our deployment thought process, it's how many ambulances are we going to need and where do we need to put them. And while we're making these decisions, we're taking some things into consideration. We've highlighted 4 for you, just big ones. I mean, there are dozens and dozens of decision points here, but these are some big ones. Response times. You might be beholden to a specific response time. Maybe 90% of the time you have to respond to calls under 9 minutes. So maybe you're contractually obligated to response times. Maybe you're contractually obligated to a certain level of care. Maybe every 911 call in your area, in your community, must be attended to by a paramedic at the ALS level. Or maybe we can send a BLS ambulance and through a tiered system. So depending on what the requirements are for level of care, that's going to drive some deployment decisions, as will population, both total population in your community and population density. As densities get more and more dense in areas, especially urban areas, call volume will increase disproportionately to the overall population. So not only are we paying attention to our community's population as a total, but we are paying attention to population density, how many people per square mile. And then we're looking back into historical data and trying to look for some demand patterns. And I'm sure you can think of some examples of this. If we just go 4 a.m. versus 4 p.m. In any given day, there are going to be some differences in demand. So we can look at time of day, we can look at day of week, we can look at seasonal patterns. So we're taking these demand patterns into account as well. So let's jump into demand and these demand patterns. So patterns, we pulled out a couple examples for you: time of day, day of the week, seasonalities. But our demand patterns, they can be geographic, or we can have temporal demand patterns. Our geographic demand patterns are best visualized through a heat map. This is a computer system, uses historical data to tell us where the probabilities of receiving a call are going to be based on geographic location. So the darker the color, that dark red into those deep purples can be the highest probability of receiving a call from that geographic area during that hour of that day. It takes into account a lot of parameters, a lot of variables, but this is just measuring and visualizing geographic demand patterns. For temporal patterns, we are also looking at historical data. and to drive our decisions. And instead of a geographic heat map, we are looking at just time of day and how many calls are um, being received at that time of day. So for this service, you see the lowest number of calls around 4 p.m. or excuse me 4 a.m., 5 a.m. with the highest number of calls during the day coming around looks around like 6 p.m. or so. So using this data, we can not only know where to place our ambulances using that heat map where they're coming from geographically, but now we know kind of have an idea of how many ambulances to staff during different times of the day. Now remember, a goal of deployment is to match supply with demand. So we're going to take that demand data, both geographic and temporal, and we're going to try to match our supply to that demand. From our supply end, deployment is going to come in two flavors. One is static deployment, the other is dynamic deployment. In static deployment, we have fixed locations, fixed bases, stations, from which an ambulance unit will respond from. After the call, the response unit will return to that fixed location, and there's a dedicated response zone. So if you're at Station 1, there is a dedicated Station 1 response zone. So any call coming in from that zone will have that ambulance from Station 1 dispatched to it. With static deployment, we have the same number of ambulances during the day, across the 24 hours. Some systems you might drop one or two trucks at night, but in general, the number of ambulances available to the community remained fixed as well. So here we have a static deployment map for you. You'll see the different EMS stations, EMS bases located throughout these communities, with those colored areas being their primary response areas. So down there in the bottom right, you've got EMS station number 421, and that ambulance will respond within that light bluish colored area. On the dynamic side, now we are shifting away from our fixed locations, and we have ambulances moving throughout our system, moving throughout the community during the course of the day. Also called, or system status management falls under this dynamic deployment idea. And you'll have ambulances, what we usually call posting. So we'll set them up on a street corner in a parking lot. Sometimes these posting locations are co-located with fire departments or even owned by the EMS agency itself, but there's no fixed station to return to, and no fixed zone of coverage to go back to after you receive a call. So your ambulance will be posted somewhere, and when a call comes in, the dispatch software will identify which ambulance, which posted ambulance is actually closest to that call and can get there the quickest. So it's kind of a fluid response zone and not quite as fixed as our static deployment. And also during the course of the day, the 24-hour day, there's going to be a shifting number of ambulances. So we saw before that 4 a.m. We don't receive a whole lot of calls, but at 6 p.m. we do. So maybe at 6 p.m. we have 20 ambulances on the road versus 4 a.m. when we have 12 ambulances on the road. We'll go back to our geographic heat map here, and remember this is giving us probabilities of chances of a call coming from that area with that bright red area there just outside. This is Charlotte, so just outside of uptown Charlotte, showing there's a pretty good probability of a call coming there during that time period. And so this can drive where we put ambulances. So you'll see on this map there is an ambulance in uptown Charlotte there and ready to respond. So if a call comes out there, call comes out right around here, this unit can respond there. And then they've also got a secondary unit just outside of uptown Charlotte, and this unit can move into uptown Charlotte very easily to cover still a strong possibility of another call coming out there. So we see different units positioned throughout the area, and on the system here, see we've got a call that's come in. So it will dispatch the closest unit to that call, which looks to be that unit, so they'll be heading out to that call. Now we said that our deployment came in two flavors, dynamic and static, but there is a hybrid form. So if we combine the two flavors, we get this mixture of static deployment and dynamic deployment, typically known as these peak load ambulances. So I've got a number of ambulance units that have fixed stations, and they respond back and forth to those stations. They're set there. And then maybe during the day, during peak times of demand, we'll throw on a few more ambulances. These just function during those peak times, and they might be a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more flexible. So they'll kind of cover the rest of the community in those using those heat maps, those geographic demand patterns. They can shift to those areas and cover those areas and not overwhelm the fixed units. Here we have Wake County in the Raleigh area, and we see in the yellow, those are their fixed trucks going back and forth to a station, and then in the blue are their peak load trucks. So generally showing them where they start, and then they're a little bit more fluid and will move around a little bit more during the day than will their statically deployed units. Now let's go back to our unit hour utilization ratios. I know we've talked about this already, talked about this before, unit hour utilization being our utilization divided by the number of unit hours that we are producing. Typically, we use transports as our utilization over a unit hours. So for one truck working a 12-hour shift, if we do 8 transports over that 12-hour shift, we've got a unit hour utilization of 0.67, or 2/3 of the time this truck during its shift is in use. So typically we use transports, but as we move towards more dynamic deployment, the argument for using post moves, the argument for using responses, and not just transports, so including some extra workload, comes into the conversation. And that's going to be up to you as a manager. Do you, if you're in, let's say, a fully dynamic deployment agency employing system status management, do you include post moves as utilization since your crew is in motion and they are being utilized at that point? If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or cuss words, please feel free to let us know.